August 16th, 2026. Glad to have you with us online and in class. Today, we're going to be in Judges chapter 16. We're going to be looking at the account of Samson, one of the preeminent judges, one of the major judges. And it's called Compromise. And we'll be in session number 11 in your study book. Starts on page 100. So if you want to turn to that, you'll be at the beginning of our study. We're going to be looking at these three main areas. One, strength departed, verses 16 through 20. This is all in Judges 16. Second point is Samson defeated, verses 21 through 25a, the first most of verse 25. And the third point, Philistines destroyed and put down, whatever. And that's in verses 25b, the last part, through verse 31. Our main idea today is that Samson's physical strength could not save him from the consequences of his weak moral character. So let's go ahead and begin. We'll start with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the time we have to study your word. Your word is precious to us, Lord. And I thank you for this opportunity we have to study it, Lord. I just pray that you be with those couldn't be here today due to illness or whatever it might be. Be with those that are on their way here too. Keep them safe. Help us as we study your word to learn the things we need to learn today. Thank you in your son's precious name. Amen. So let me check and see. It still doesn't say go live. So I know I'm probably recording it, just not live streaming. We can always post it later, I think, is what I was told. So let's go ahead and start our session today. And let me see. In our handout, we have handout number 1, which is looks like this. And if you want a copy of our handouts, you can contact our pastor, Pastor Matthew Ellis, at Grace Baptist Church in beautiful Vancouver, Washington. And he will be glad to add your name to the email list so you can get a copy of it next time. Anyway, today is called Compromise. And we have the intro paragraph, which I'm going to go ahead and read for us. It says, parents, grandparents, teachers, and anyone who has spent time with young children recognize the importance of teaching the concept of cause and effect. The idea is that for every cause, there is an effect. And for every effect, there was a cause. In other words, there are consequences to every person's thoughts, behaviors, and actions. In the Bible, Samson is one of the examples among many who suffered the consequences of a weak moral character. So then it asks the question, it says, how has understanding the principle of cause and effect influenced the choices you make in life? And a lot of things in life have those kind of things. Let me double check something here. It says, it doesn't say I can go live yet. So apparently it's still messed up. Again, I apologize for those of you who want to watch live. I don't have a technician to help me right now, so I don't know what the problem is. I checked all the things I could check, and apparently it should be working, but it's not. How has understanding the principle of cause and effect influenced the choices you make in life? And, there's many kind of things we choose in life early to obey parents, right? And we find out that when we disobey parents, there is an effect. Sometimes that effect can profoundly affect us physically, or we could lose privileges or whatever it might be. As we grow up in life, we find out if we hi, come on in, Sharon. And we find out if we go speeding, you're the only one so far today, except those online. Unfortunately, those online may not be there because it's not going live for me. So I am thinking that I can take the part, so I am continuing as if it was, so we can post it later. But glad to have you with us today. Anyway, so we're talking about Samson today.
Yes.
And it's really a very interesting study. He is one of the major judges. And he is one of the major judges because that means there was a lot written about him. Not because he was anything special other than the fact that a lot of things were written about Samson. And anyway, we're talking about the understanding the principle of cause and effect. That's from our intro paragraph. So there's a lot of things we do in life. we make decisions, and we hopefully will make them guided by good principles, you know. And if we were raised correctly, we hopefully will have a good guidelines in our life to follow and be a moral person. When we're not, and we suffer the consequences of that. And that's what Samson is. He's an example for us, in essence, to not follow as far as his moral behavior. And as we're going to look at that briefly here. So there's a lot of things that have caused us in our life to do different various things because of the cause and effect. You know, what we did had an effect. You know, the effect had a cause, and so on. So, remembering from our previous studies in Judges, what key aspect really distinguishes Judges? We talked about at the very beginning. Remember my illustration using the yo-yo?
Yeah, cause and effect.
That's sort of cause and effect as well, isn't it?
Right.
But it's called the cycle of sin. You know, remember they would say, yes, God, we'll follow you. Then they fall into sin. Then they cry out to the Lord because guess what? God says, you're not going to get away with that sin. I'm going to send whoever it might be, the Midianites, in the case of Gideon, in this case it's the Philistines, to punish you, to show you you're doing the wrong thing. And so then they cry out to the Lord, and the Lord hears them and does what?
He forgives and
he sends what?
Oh, he sends
a judge.
A leader,
yeah, a deliverer, right? Now we use the word judge because I think that was just the tradition of using that word. In some cases they did judge, but mostly they were a deliverer. They were raised up, maybe sometimes from obscurity, to be a leader, right?
But
Gideon,
they were all imperfect too.
Yeah.
You know?
Remember we were talking about Gideon?
Poor Gideon. He did right most of the time. So,
and he was doing what? He was hiding in a wine press.
Oh, yeah.
Beating out the grain out of the wheat or whatever it was he was harvesting, looking around, you know, trying to hide from the Midianites. Yeah, that's what it was. So he was rather obscure. Nobody would have picked him to be the deliverer, but God did.
And he wouldn't pick himself, but God did.
Yeah. Yep. But anyway, we're dealing with a person now called Samson. Samson is a different character altogether. But the same thing happened. The Philistines were raised up by God to do what? Chastise Israel, right? Chastise them because of their sin.
So many times.
Yes, the cycle continued many times. And by the way, who is Samson? Let's look at who is Samson, because that's kind of an important thing.
Yeah.
And I have a couple of things I was going to show or talk about.
And he knew he was special.
Oh, here's that cycle of sin I talked about. Hand up number 2.
Okay.
And it looks like this for those of you online. I know you can't really read it. I apologize for that. But they would sin. They would suffer the price of their sin. They would go reach out to God. Supplication is asking God to help them, please help them. And then they'd send a deliverer for salvation. And then they'd be okay for a while. Then the judge would die, and what would happen? The cycle would continue. And it was a sad thing. In handout number 4, it says, who is Samson? Samson is also talked about here on our key characters in Joshua, Judges, and Ruth. Samson is the last of the major judges in Israel. From the tribe of Dan, Samson was known for his long hair as part of his Nazirite vow and his great strength. Despite his moral weaknesses, God uses Samson to harass the Philistines across several years. He died destroying a pagan temple, killing more Philistines in his death than he had killed during his lifetime. And I did a little bit of a look at some of these things about him. Samson was a judge, deliverer of Israel from the tribe of Dan. He was known for his extraordinary strength, which God empowered him to defeat the opposing Philistines. So it was his strength and his long hair. No, not really. The long hair has to do with his Nazirite vow. And the vow is from his infancy on up. He was dedicated to the Lord, and it even goes back further than that to his mother. But anyway, he violated his vow several times, many times, and finally it was the last thing, and God said, "Okay, that's it." And his strength left him. He didn't even know that God's strength had left him.
Yeah.
It's sad. We're going to talk about that. But God takes away his strength. The account of Samson begins with how his mother was barren. She didn't have any children, no hope. And she was visited by an angel who foretold of her son's birth and his dedication to God. Now, that would be a similar thing to other people in the Bible. Elizabeth, remember that? And there was another.
And Mary.
Well,
of course.
that was, yeah, but she wasn't barren, but yes.
No, she wasn't barren.
There was somebody else, and I can't think of who. Oh, Sarah. Sarah.
Yeah.
And so God is in the business of helping people, right? We see that. Anyway, but he would be dedicated to God, it says. Samson's story marked by personal failures, sins, and his divine. I really hate that personal failures things. I put into parentheses sins. I found this information on several places. But his personal failures was simply put, it was sins, right? Sins. Let me see. Does it say it go live?
I heard it tweet.
Yeah.
Tweet.
It doesn't say it can go live yet. No, it's just still preparing to stream.
Oh.
So there's something, talk about weak moral character. There's something weak in this.
That's what I tell Siri sometimes. She doesn't know what I'm saying.
So as an overview of Samson, I got some other bullet points here. He was also he was a judge of Israel. He served as a leader who delivered Israel during the time of the Philistine oppression. He was the 12th and final judge before King Saul, which is interesting. He was a Nazirite as far as in vow. He wasn't from Nazareth or anything like that, but he was. The vow applies to him because he was dedicated to God from birth, actually before birth in a way, which includes specific lifestyle restrictions. His name means, Samson means sun or brightness. Strength and weaknesses. His strength was linked to his hair, but he struggled with serious personal flaws, particularly in relationships. Well, that's an understatement, right?
Yeah.
Key events. Notable stories include his battle against the Philistines and his relationship with a woman named Delilah. Legacy. Despite his failures, he is remembered in the Bible for his ultimate redemption. And linked to service, he was a judge over Israel for a total of 20 years. And we don't know exactly when it is. I tried to find something that talked about exactly, but there's several different time spans that different theologians think. And we don't know exactly because it was hard to tell time because they didn't write it down. In this year, blah, blah, blah. They would talk about things like when King somebody of Egypt, and then you could go back and you could maybe figure it out. You were saying?
Did it ever say what Samson's mother's name was?
No, I was going to ask you. I was going to try to stump you in that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, no one knows the name of
the mother. It didn't matter really.
Well, it matters to somebody.
Yeah.
But it wasn't it mattered for the story, and so no, we don't know her name.
But even she couldn't drink wine.
Right, she was told not
to.
Right, she was told not to. But then, and those kind of things. There's other things you couldn't touch a corpse. There's a lot of things like that. Nothing from the vine, also, along with just intoxicants like beer or anything, but not even raisins, no grapes, no wine, nothing like that. Anyway, just as on a timeline thing, some people ask about this. In 1069 BC to 1049 is when they think he was judge in Israel. That's one idea. Another idea, let me find this one if I can see where it was here. Samson, here we go. From 1095 to 1075. We're not really sure. It was 20 years in there somewhere. That's is it important? Not really important, but some people think it might be. Would you like to read one of our verses?
I'll read another one.
I'll tell you what, I'll give you the last one,
okay.
And I'll take the middle one.
Okay.
If somebody comes in, we'll give it.
If somebody comes in, yeah, we'll.
That way you don't have to read all.
That will.
So, anyway, so he was a judge or a deliverer in Israel for 20 years. So that's an accomplishment.
I'll put this right here because Steve, every now and then, comes in.
Steve's going to be here today. He hasn't showed up yet, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Where was I? So we talked about the cycle of the judges, how they fell into sin and would come out again. We talked about his references. So the angel of the Lord. Now, what angel does that? We don't know. But an angel of the Lord was sent to Samson's mother, who was barren, who could not have children, and informed her that she and her husband would have a son. Now that would be a shock too, because you live in your life and you can't have any kids. Suddenly, this person tells you in shining raiment, "Oh, by the way, you're going to have a baby, and it's going to be a boy." But you must raise him as a Nazirite. Now, what is a Nazirite? In Judges 13, 2 through 7, it kind of talks a little bit about that aspect of what the angel was telling her. I think I have this here somewhere. Here we go. And Judges 13, 2 through 7. There was a certain man of Zorah of the family of the Danites. I forgot to mention that. He's from the tribe of Dan, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and bore no children. Then the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, "Behold, now you are barren and have borne no children, but you shall conceive and give birth to a son. Now therefore be careful not to drink wine or strong drink or eat any unclean thing. For behold, you shall conceive and give birth to a son, and no razor shall come upon his head, for the boy shall be a Nazirite to God from the womb. And he shall begin to deliver Israel from the hands of the Philistines." And the woman came and told her husband, saying, "A man of God came to me, and his appearance was like the appearance of an angel of God, very awesome. And I did not ask him from where he came, nor did he tell me his name. But he said, behold, you should conceive and give birth to a son, and now you shall not drink wine or strong drink or eat any unclean thing, for the boy shall be a Nazirite to God from the womb and to the day of his death." So that's just recounting what had happened for that prior to him being born. So like I said, nothing from the vine, abstain from alcohol, hair never to be cut, and to avoid contact with any corpse. And if you read, it talks about that in Numbers chapter 6. We're not going to read those verses. It's 1 through 21. So if you want to read it, it's in Numbers 6, 1 through 21. Now, I didn't do any study on where the word Nazirite came from, but it has nothing to do with coming from Nazareth. Some people get confused with that. Oh, where is Nazareth? Nazareth it's not on our map. This might be on this map. Nazareth is basically off to the left of the Sea of Galilee, beyond Mount Tabor. On this map here, I don't think Nazareth shows up. It would be right around here. But there was no Nazareth, so Nazirite means nothing to do with Nazareth. Probably Nazareth might have been named after somebody who was a Nazirite.
Maybe.
That might be, but it has to be, it basically means somebody who is dedicated to God for life. But since I'm looking at the map here, let's look at where Samson's from. Where was Samson from? He was from the town of Zorah. Wouldn't you be from the town of Zorah? What a name that is. Put that on your return label. Zorah. And an interesting thing here I want to point out also on here, the Philistines were very powerful in this area. Okay? The Philistines were people of the sea. They came and established a base of operations here, and they would attack different parts of Israel in this area. Their main headquarters was in Gaza, apparently, this little coastal town right here. And so that's not that far from Zorah, as you can see, right? So this is probably why God raised up Samson, because Samson was a man of that area, right? And they knew that. Says the Spirit of the Lord stirred Samson at a certain point in his age, and he became a judge or deliverer in Israel for 20 years. And we see that in Judges 13:25, it mentions that time frame. Samson, also in Judges 15:20. Samson, however, had a flawed character. He kept the wrong company. That's putting it mildly. I used to tell my boys when they were growing up, you choose your friends. And what does that mean, Dad? It means choose your friends wisely. If you get into trouble, that's because you probably chose the wrong friends.
Yeah.
And that many times is something doesn't mean we never associate with anybody else, no. But those you put confidence in, those you admire, those you look up to, those people influence your life. And you don't want people to influence your life who are flawed moral character that will pull you down instead of lift you up. That's common sense, right? That would be one of the Proverbs, probably, if we were to write a proverb like that. And it probably is one, at least that way.
My grandson, who was having great troubles 3 years ago, came yesterday with friends, and he's a changed young man.
Great.
I think it is because he chose a good friend.
Excellent. It's amazing how much the company you keep will influence us.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen people change so much when they married the right girl, or the girl married the right guy, whatever it might be, or they go to a college where it happens to be a Christian college, and suddenly they're on fire for the Lord. Conversely, they've gone to college. I've seen people go to colleges who maybe went to a secular college and who were strong Christians, and then they have problems. So those kind of things does influence our characters, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, so he demonstrated a weak moral character on many occasions, but his encounter with a woman named Delilah is what we're going to talk about today. Anyway, he allowed his lack of self-control to go too far, and he suffered for it. So we're going to pick it up in chapter 16, verse 16. But before we do, we talked about where the beginning of Samson was, right? With his mother and that. And so it says that the, where was it? Okay. Hold on a second. Okay. So it says, then a woman gave birth to a son and named him Samson. And the child grew up, and the Lord blessed him. We don't know the woman's name. The angel didn't say to call him Samson, but that doesn't make any difference.
No, it didn't.
It says, and the Spirit of the Lord began to stir in Samson in Mahane Dan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. Well, let's see if I can find that.
See, Zorah is easier to say than those other words.
Zorah's right there. There's Eshtaol. So right in this area is where Samson, and this is the area of Dan. This it goes all the way from the end of the Dead Sea area all the way through to here. And so that was that tribal area of Dan. Let's look at the first one here. First one is called Strength Departed. So, well, no, I jumped ahead of myself. I want to talk a little bit about what happened before that chapter, before we start. It says that Samson went down to Timnah, and he saw a woman in Timnah, one of the daughters of the Philistines. And he came back and has told his father and mother, I saw a woman in Timnah, one of the daughters of the Philistines. Now, therefore, get her for me as a wife.
Yeah.
Now, right away, we see a problem here. Who is Samson? He's an Israelite, right? And what are the Israelites supposed to do with their pagan neighbors? Intermarry and have a good old... No, they're not supposed to, are they? No. So right away, he's showing poor decision-making skills.
So one of the Nazirite things isn't that they have to stay celibate.
No. I don't think so. I don't.
It doesn't ever. I couldn't see that.
No, it doesn't say that. You have to look at that one in Numbers that we talked about earlier. And it gives you all the details of that.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, he was to avoid.
Yeah, celibacy really wasn't a thing that I can remember in any of the Old or New Testament, except where Paul says, "I wish that you would be as I am," and because he wasn't married at the time. But that's okay if the Lord calls you to be married.
Yes,
make sure you have a believing wife or something like that.
Yeah.
So, that came later with like Catholicism.
Yes.
Roman Catholicism and Orthodox maybe as well. I'm not sure about the Orthodox side, but they kind of brought up that thing about being if you're a priest or something, you have to be celibate, and that actually can cause all kinds of problems.
Oh, it can.
Yes.
It can.
Anyway.
I thought maybe that was why Samson went astray, but no.
But God told us at the very beginning, it's not good for man to be alone. That's why he made. That's why he made woman. So we know that was good because he said it was very good when he made man and woman. Anyway, his father and his mother said to him, "There's no women among the daughters of your relatives or among all of our people." In other words, in Israel or Dan, right? There's no women there that you can go take a wife, that you have to go to the uncircumcised Philistines.
That's right.
And so, but Samson said to his father, "Get her for me, for she looks good to me." Sounds like a troglodyte. He didn't care. He didn't listen. He didn't listen to his father and mother, did he? However, it says his father and his mother did not know that it was the Lord, that it was of the Lord, for he was seeking an occasion against the Philistines. So this was something that God was using. Samson had this poor moral character, but God was using that for his own good, his own glory. So he ends up marrying this woman.
Yeah.
And then on his way to the wedding, he is attacked by a lion, and the lion doesn't know what he's up against, and he gets killed by Samson. And then later, Samson comes that way again, and the dead lion's body's there, and there's a bunch of honeybees. And look, there's wonderful honey. So he picks up some of the honey, takes it home, shares it with his mother and father. Doesn't tell them where it came from, because you're not supposed to touch what?
A corpse.
And he did. And I think his mother was still observing that kind of stuff too, probably. Anyway, you weren't supposed to touch a corpse, period, anyway. It was not a good thing to do. But he didn't tell his mother and father. So, but then he makes up this riddle. During the marriage thing, about how out of something came this sweet thing, you know. And you're supposed to skip. Well, they got the people who he bet this bet with, got his new wife to compromise him by getting the answer to the riddle, which she then told her people, the Philistines, right? And then so they were able to answer the riddle, but that turned out to be an occasion against the Philistines, right? Because we know what happened after that. He burned the crops. This is important. He burned the crops of the Philistines. He took foxes, and he must have caught a bunch of foxes, tied their tails together.
Wasn't that awful?
Tied their tails together, and then attached a lit torch, probably on a length of string, to the middle of the tails, and then set them off into the grain fields. Well, foxes don't want to have their tails,
No.
so they go all over the place, starting fires throughout the grain of the Philistines. And now I'm going to bring this up something else, because it figures later on. The Philistines, of course, were pagans. They were polytheists. Now, what's a polytheist? A person who worships many gods, not just one. And one of their gods was Dagon, and Dagon was a god of harvest. And so they would pray to him, offer sacrifices and things to ensure a good harvest of grain and other things. So burning down their crops was God's way of using Samson to show that Dagon is ineffective.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll keep that in mind, because later on it factors in. That's my thing up there making funny noises.
Okay.
So he burns their crops down, and then they go after his wife, and they like give his wife to somebody else, and then he kills the family and the people involved, and then he what else does he do here? I'm just briefly going through it here. He goes to Gaza. And he pulls out the posts of the gate for their fortress there. Pulls out the posts, puts them on his shoulder, and walks away. So your gate is gone. You're defenseless, you know. And so this is, again, God is using Samson against the Philistines to bring the fact that they're oppressing Israel and stop it. Okay, so and he did some other things too. He tore down some of their altars too, and things like that. And let's see. And then he sent them. This is later on, so I'm not going to get into that too much. But there's some other things he did. He also got the jawbone of a donkey, and he used that to kill 1,000 men with it. That went up against him. So nobody could stop him. He had super strength. He had been given this special gift from God of strength, and he was able to go after the Philistines. And some of the things he did, and it basically stirred them up so they would go after him. It's like going to a bee's nest, you know, and say, shake, shake, shake. Okay, here I am. Come get me.
Yeah, and they try.
And they try. Yeah, but in this case of Samson, of course, they made the mistake of thinking they could get him, and they couldn't. But then he went down to Gaza, and this is where our thing starts today, in chapter 16. He went to Gaza, and he saw a harlot there. A harlot's a prostitute. And he went into her. When it was told the Gazites, Samson has come here, they surrounded the place and lay in wait for him all night. at the gate of the city. Since they kept silent all night long, saying, "Let us wait until morning light, then we will kill him." Samson lay until midnight, and at midnight he arose. And this is where he took the doors. That's right. I was ahead of myself. He took the doors off the gate and the posts and pulled them up along the bars, and he put them on his shoulders and carried them to the top of a mountain, which is opposite Hebron. And then he came. Then it came about that he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, and her name was Delilah. So this is at least the third woman now we know about. Yeah. The first one he married, and then ended up I think that person died with their family because of what the Philistines did. Yeah. And then there's a prostitute, and now there's basically another prostitute. They don't call her that, and this is the woman named Delilah.
And it means flirt.
Yes, that's right, exactly. And this is interesting. I'm going to read this as well. This is not covered before in our lesson per se. But the lords of the Philistines came to her and said, "Entice him, see what his great strength lies, that we may overpower him, that we may bind him to afflict him. Then we will give you 1,100 pieces of silver." 1,100 pieces. That's quite a handsome amount for anybody. And so this woman says, "Oh boy, I'll do it." Yeah. Well. And so it says, "Please tell me your strength is." It says, "If they bind me with 7 fresh cords that have not been dried down, will become weak." Well, she wakes him up and says, "The Philistines are upon you," and he snapped the cords like string. Then Delilah said to him, "Behold, you have deceived me, and you told me lies. You don't love me."
So you get a clue at that? My gosh.
No, Samson was thick on these. This is where his moral flaws came in.
Yeah,
and that's for sure. This is okay. Here's somebody could really get me. If they bind me tightly with new ropes that have not been used, then I will become weak like any other man. So then then Delilah had him bound up when he was asleep, which always wondered, this guy's a deep sleeper. "The Philistines are upon you. The Philistines are upon you, Samson." The men who were laying awake in the other room. But he snatched the ropes from his arms like thread. Then Delilah said to Samson, "Up to now you have deceived me and told me lies about how you can be bound And then so she said it a third time, "Well, if you weave the 7 locks of my hair with the web or a comb, and you fasten it with a pin, I will become weak like any other man." So while he slept, Delilah took the 7 locks of his hair and wove them into a web, and she fastened it with the pin. What an idiot. "The Philistines are upon you. The Philistines are upon you." But he woke from his sleep and pulled out the pin, and then she said, and basically was able to defeat the Philistines again. And then she said to him, "How can you say, 'I love you,' when your heart is not with me? You have deceived me these 3 times and have not told me where your great strength lies." So, you'd think he would have said, "Okay, that's it. You're gone 3 times. I know what you're doing." Yeah. No. He doesn't. I think it's his arrogance more than anything else. He thought, well, I'm strong no matter what, But it's funny because he got to the point now of the hair, which is an important part of the Nazirite vow. It is. It's a symbol of God being with you and you being dedicated to God. And so now they're getting really close to where, this aspect is that we're going to see here. So I'm going to have you read the first one for me. It's called "Strength Departed." And for the first 5 verses, I want you to look for the prominent details that stand out to you. And we'll, of course, both do that together.
Judges 16 through 20.
Yes. Could you read those for us?
Yes. "With such nagging, she prodded him day after day until he was sick to death of it. So he told her everything. No razor has ever..." We left one.
I'll give him you want a shorter one?
Oh.
Or you want that one? No? Okay. Go ahead.
"No razor has ever been used on my head," he said, "because I have been a Nazirite dedicated to God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as any other man." When Delilah saw that he had told her everything, she sent word to the rulers of the Philistines, "Come back once more. He has told me everything." So the rulers of the Philistines returned with the silver in their hand. After putting him to sleep on her lap, she called for someone to shave off the 7 braids of his hair, and so began to subdue him, and his strength left him. Then she called, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. He awoke from his sleep and thought, I'll go out as before and shake myself free. But he did not know that the Lord had left him.
Wow. That last part,
Yeah.
that's so sad. You know, here's this mighty man of God, even though he wasn't very godly. And he didn't even know that God had departed from him.
Seems like Delilah would have given up after the
She was
previous
persistent.
times.
She wanted that 1,100 pieces of
Oh,
silver.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna do a whole lot when you get threatened.
Yeah.
You either do this or
Yeah. But the money probably helped a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, in light of our main point today, and I'm going to reread that, it says Samson's physical strength could not save him from the consequences of his weak moral character. The Philistines finally got him, right?
Yeah.
And this cycle of sin had placed them under, of course, you saw it before, the control of their enemies. And then Delilah comes into the picture, and she does these things. And as you point out, the name Delilah means flirt. stating that Samson fell in love with her. I think it'd be better to say he fell in lust with her.
Yeah.
The eyes of the flesh, the lust of the eyes. There we go. Which same thing happened with the previous 2 before Delilah. Anyway, so they saw this opportunity, offered her the money. She said, "I'll take the bargain." And how can the people with whom we choose to associate impact our ability to remain faithful to God? We talked about that a little bit before. The people we associate with in life. In this case, Samson chose to associate with Delilah. We saw that how that affected him. Those things affect us in our lives as well, doesn't it? By the way, I don't think the live stream's working. If you're going to check on that for me,
no.
because it's saying I can't go live. So don't worry about it. I'm just letting you know, if you do check it, it's just not working. Anyway, Samson's physical strength could not save him the consequences of his moral weakness, just like we mentioned before. Let's look at the next point here. Next point is, and this is an interesting story. This is the last part of Samson, by the way. We skipped those other parts. We read it, summary of earlier, Steve. Number 2, Samson defeated. That's mine. So for these next 5 verses, we need to listen for how the Philistines mistreated Samson. Now I'm going to read, this is chapter 16 of Judges, verses 21 through 25a, which is basically the majority of 25. The last part is on yours, Steve, so you'll see that when we get to it. But anyway, the Philistines, how did they mistreat him? The Philistines seized him, they gouged out his eyes, and they brought him down to Gaza, and they bound him with bronze chains, and he was a grinder in the prison. However, the hair of his head began to grow again after it was shaved off. Now the lords of the Philistines assembled to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon, their god, and rejoiced. For they said, our God has given Samson, our enemy, into our hands. And says, when the people saw him, Samson, they praised their God. For they said, our God has given our enemy into our hands, even the destroyer of our country, who has slain many of us. And it so happened that when they were in high spirits, by the way, the high spirits is talking about they were in a drunken brawl, essentially. And it says that they called for Samson, that he may amuse us, may entertain us. We'll bring this guy out, and he's going to jump through hoops for us, and we're going to laugh at him and spit on him and do whatever, all manner of things probably. You can only imagine. You can only imagine what the pagans would do. So they called for Samson from the prison, and he entertained them. He performed for them. So, what are some of the things they did to mistreat Samson after they finally were able to subdue him? What stood out to you?
Poked out his eyes.
Yeah, it says they gouged out his eyes.
Well, then I think, well, it's in, his eyes deceived him.
That's true.
And so
Yes. Lust
part
of the eyes.
that might have been God's punishment to him.
I think so. Yeah. It also disfigured him. And being disfigured, you could never go into the temple. There was no temple. There was a tabernacle during that time. But you could be. You had. It was just like bringing a sacrifice that was imperfect. You couldn't come into before God if you were imperfect. So he no longer could be participant in a worship situation. Not that he ever did. We don't have an account that he did, but he couldn't. So that goes along with the fact that his eyes were gouged out. Now, when they mean by gouged out, they don't mean that somebody poked him in the eye with their finger.
No.
They mean they took a tool of some sort, an awl or something like that, and went like this and yanked out his eyes, both eyes. You can imagine going through that. Oh my gosh. What else did they do to him?
They shackled him.
Shackled him. Yeah, it says with bronze chains. Now, the Bible isn't specific about the size thing, but the implication is these were heavy, big chains that were found that were made just for him.
Yeah.
Because of his strength and stuff. So they wanted something that would keep him subdued no matter what. So these chains were made for him to subdue him. What else did they do to him? Anything else they do?
Well, they'd already brought him out to entertain
Well,
him.
before that,
Ridicule him.
Before that, the last part of verse 21. It says that he was a grinder in the prison. Now, what do you think that means? Now, don't think of it in the term of modern day stuff. It wasn't that at all.
It was like the donkeys pulled.
Yeah, it's like the donkeys or team of oxen or whatever they do. They all day long, all they do is go in this circle.
Yeah. And he no longer had his strength.
And they're attached to this beam. The animals are, and this beam is attached to a rock that's used on a mill in a mill situation, and they'd be feeding in grain that they're already threshed and to be ground up so they can use it for meal. And so the whole purpose of that thing is to make food that they can eat. And so again, what was Dagon? He was a god that had to do with what? Harvest, right?
Fertility.
And fertility of the harvest and ensuring a good harvest. So he is put in as an animal all day long, pushing the stone around and around. He's blind. And by the way, when the oxen were doing that, they didn't want to do it. So there'd be somebody assigned to stand there with a spear, essentially, that had a point to it. It's called a goad. And when they slowed down or stopped, they would stab it to get it going. And they still did the same thing with him. They were doing that same thing. You talk about the humiliation, total abject humiliation. And now who has won in the eyes of the Philistines?
So far, the
Philistines. Because Dagon is triumphant. Ta-da! We've defeated our enemy, and Dagon is triumphant. That's in their view, because again, that God has to do with all this stuff, and and he is now working for Dagon. Essentially, he's slaving for Dagon. So that's what it is. So now they have this big party. This big party. They're gonna have a great, wonderful sacrifice to Dagon, their god, and they're gonna have this wonderful time. And here's Samson with his head shaved off, his hair shaved off, and he's going around. But there's something that they tell us here. They tell us, is it right there? Oh yeah, in verse 22, there's a hint of something to come here. It says, however, the hair on his head began to grow again after it was shaved off. Now, was the hair magical? And did it give him that strength that he had, do you think?
No, it was a symbol.
But it was a very important symbol, right? Because it had to do with his dedication to God, that he had basically, God, yeah, I'll do what I want to do. God's got his attention now. Do you think God's got his full attention?
Oh, yeah.
I think so. Yeah. So his hair begins to grow back, it says. And now, if I was the Philistines in charge of the prison, one of the first things on my to-do list every day would be
Shave that.
shave his head again. Keep it short. But they didn't. They figured, well, he's under our total control.
Once it's shaved, it's shaved.
Yeah.
You know, if it
Yes.
grows back, it's no big deal because he had a razor touch his head.
Yeah. That's true. But it's funny because I would, you think, well, maybe I should have shaved and keep it shaved on a regular basis. They didn't. So they're having this great party, basically, a great dedication to commemorate Dagon, their god, and what better thing to bring than the wonderful triumph over this person Samson, who had been a thorn in their side and killed all these people, right? So they pull him up off the grinding thing to come and entertain them. Can you imagine this drunken orgy of people sacrificing all these pagan things they're doing? Who knows what they're doing? I don't want to think about some of the things.
I wonder they didn't pay too much attention to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They thought that he was totally in their hands, so they didn't worry about it. But our God, Dagon, has given our enemy in our hands, and even the destroyer of our country, who has slain many of us. In other words, who are they talking about? Samson. So they got him up there, and they started to make fun of him and have him amuse them. I can't think of anything worse, I just in life for somebody to go through. Let's see. We talk a little bit about Dagon really quick here. He was the primary Philistine god. He was most likely a god of harvest, but also of weather and storms and things like that as well. And because that's the powerful aspect, the powerful side of it. What else to say? He was equivalent to the Canaanite god of Baal, which was a god in charge of harvests. Whatever his exact role in their pantheon. Now, the word pantheon is a fancy word. It means a group of. And another word you could use that would be the polytheistic view of the Philistines. Polytheistic is another big word, meaning many gods. Many gods. So they had not only Dagon, but they had other gods probably as well. It doesn't mention it here.
Yeah.
Dagon was their chief god. Different places had different chief gods, and they would grab a god from that person. Oh yeah, you got okay. We'll worship that one too. Why not? We'll cover all our bases that way. Anyway, so it was one of many of in the pantheon or the group of gods, and they credited him with the victory that they had. So, in the ancient world, when one group of people defeated another in battle, it was assumed that their god had defeated the god of the enemy. The name Dagon is mentioned in only two other places in the Bible. In 1 Chronicles 10:10, it talks about when King Saul had been defeated by the Philistines. The Philistines, by the way, didn't go away.
No, they didn't.
But they were subdued for a period of time because of what had happened here. But they ran over the defenses of King Saul. They killed Jonathan, and Saul was grievously wounded. He fell on his own sword to finish himself off. They found, when they stripped the slain for whatever they had of value, they found King Saul. They cut off his head. They took his armor and stuff, and they put it in the house of Dagon to celebrate the fact that Dagon was triumphant again. So that's another one of Dagon things. There's also, it talks about Dagon again in 1 Samuel 5:2, and in that chapter 5, it talks about Dagon again. And this was when the Israelites went in battle against the Philistines again, and they took with them the Ark of the Covenant. Well, we got this wonderful Ark of the Covenant. It's like a good luck charm.
Oh.
St. Christopher's medal, or whatever you want to call it. They'll go into battle with that Ark and we'll be triumphant, we'll win. Of course, God said, no. There's no God in a box. I'm not contained in a box. And so he allowed the Ark to be taken. And they took this prize, the Philistines did, and they put it in their main temple there, right next to Dagon. And guess what they found in the morning? Dagon was face down in front of the Ark. So this big statue was they set Dagon back up. Well, how did this happen? And I think it happened again, and then one more time. He said it 2 or 3 times. I have to look at the account. It's not that important. The last time I think his hands were broken off. And I don't know if the head was or not, but you can look it up later. It's in 1 Samuel chapter 5. It's an interesting account. And the Philistines were then afflicted with tumors and stuff. And they said, let's get this ark out of here. So they sent it back to Israel. But anyway, that's when Dagon is mentioned in the Bible. So anyway, what is, I got a question up here real quick here. Oh, we're almost out of time. What are some things Samson lost as a result of his weak character? What did he lose?
His strength,
His
his
strength?
sight, his blessing
Eyesight.
from God.
His what?
Mainly,
Yeah. His closeness with God. Yeah. Also, he lost his dignity. Look, he was stripped of his dignity totally. He had to be led around by a child because he was blind. All these things. So, what was his greatest loss of all those things?
Well,
Relationship with God.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And he finally realized that. He finally realized that. We're gonna see that here in a moment. Here, let's go ahead and read the last one, which is number 3. And Samson destroys the Philistines there in that one area. And for these next 5.5 verses, I want you to note the evidences that God did not abandon Samson. Go ahead and read those for us, Steve.
When they stood him among the pillars, Samson said to the servant who held his hand, please put me where I can feel the pillars that support the temple, so that I may lean against them. Now the temple was crowded with men and women. All the rulers of the Philistines were there, and on the roof were about 3,000 men and women watching Samson perform. Then Samson prayed to the Lord, Sovereign Lord, remember me, please God, strengthen me just once more, and let me with one blow get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes. Then Samson reached toward the 2 central pillars on which the temple stood, bracing himself against them, his right hand on one and his left hand on the other. Samson said, let me die with the Philistines. Then he pushed with all his might, and down came the temple, all the rulers, and all the people in it. Thus he killed many more when he died than while he lived.
In verse 31 also.
Oh. Then his brothers and the father's whole family went down to get him. They brought him back and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the tomb of Manoah, his father. He led Israel for 20 years.
Okay. So, did God totally abandon him? No.
For a time only.
No.
Yeah.
He did to teach him a lesson.
Yeah.
But he also was using him besides all his faults. Can God use us with our faults?
Yeah.
Sure he can.
Thank goodness.
Sure he can, right. So we see that the evidence was that the hair not only grew back, but God gave him that strength again. Now, it's interesting to note that when he calls upon God, he uses a term which is translated as Yahweh, which means like fervent Lord. Before that, he'd use the word Elohim, which means more of a general kind of God thing, okay? And depending on who you are, In the case of Israelite, they'd be referring to God Almighty, but it's not as reverential as Yahweh would have been. That's something I was reading about. So he finally got it. He finally understood God is sovereign. I think that's the word you read, Steve, was sovereign, Lord.
It says sovereign.
And that's why it's an important note. Before that, he had not used that term, apparently. And so he was given strength back, not because of his hair, but because God was being merciful to him, was giving him the second chance. Now it says that about 3,000 men and women were on the roof, looking down. So we don't know exactly how many, but they think between 4,000 and 5,000 people. This is a big place. And they probably had it maxed higher than the fire department told them they should.
Yeah, who
Yeah.
cared?
They were stuffed and everything. They wanted to see the show. They wanted to see this great, oh wow, they're going to bring out Samson. Well, let's go watch too. You know, and it says all the lords were there. In other words, all the important people were there too. It was a thing to be. It was like, if you're not there, you're square. I mean,
But even
you're, so this was an interesting thing. All these people crammed into this big building.
But even at that, he was asking for revenge for his eyes,
Yes.
not for.
It wasn't perfect, was it?
No,
No.
it was really, it was to revenge God's blessing on him and on the Israelites. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, he got the revenge.
It mentioned that here, and I was going to bring that up if somebody else didn't think of doing that. It says his motives were not entirely noble. We see that the first thing is that Samson asked God to remember him. That's good, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And he was seeking God to act on his behalf. Okay. Second, he asked God to strengthen him. Well, that's good, I guess, too, right? He acknowledged that any strength he had came from God. And he used, like I said, he used that term, sovereign Lord.
Yeah. And
different than any time before. So he learned his lesson in that aspect. But third, he asked God to let him pay back the Philistines for blinding him. This last request, we see that Samson.
1 out of 4.
Yeah, well, you know, Samson still didn't understand his full role before God. He sought vengeance.
Well,
and so I'm just saying, he wasn't perfect. Neither are we.
But if you look at his whole life, that's exactly the way he went. He was very self-serving.
Yes, he had serious moral flaws. His character. Yes. So he sought vengeance more than justice. There's a difference between that. He wanted payback more than serving God. His focus was on the wrong done to him rather than delivering the Israelites from the Philistines' oppression. We see there was some growth then, though, but Samson's flawed character, like you mentioned, Steve, it still was there, wasn't it? So can we also make sinful choices? Sure we can. Will there be consequences for them as well?
Yep.
But God is merciful. Just like he was with Samson in that fact. Will he extend mercy to us too? Sure will. Samson's relatives retrieved his body, buried him in the family tomb. He suffered the consequences of his sinful choices. Christians still suffer for immoral decisions, but God is only a prayer of forgiveness away. So let's look at our statements. Will be closing up for a little out of time here. First of the three main points is that Christians should avoid putting themselves in situations that will tempt them to sin. He did it over and over and over, didn't he? So we want to avoid that. Don't have people around you that will help compromise you. So second point, Christians who compromise their faithfulness to God will eventually be put to shame. He was. Third point, Christians can be confident that God does not abandon them in spite of their sin. And that is one of the things that we can take hope from as well, because we also run into those problems in our life too. So let me see, I'll just skip to the main thing here. Well, maybe I don't see what I've oh yeah, here it is. So if you think about a time when you sinned against God and discovered that he had not abandoned you, many of us can think about those kind of things where God did not abandon us. The challenge from today's study is to seriously consider how God's faithfulness to us, how that affects our overall faithfulness to him as well. It should goad us to be more faithful, right? Any questions or comments? This is, like I said, this is like besides Gideon and Deborah, this is probably after those two, this is probably the most verses of the judges. A lot of these judges use 1 or 2 lines.
Yeah.
But Samson didn't. He got this a lot of press here, didn't he? Let's have a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for this study we had. Lord, I just pray that you'd help us in our lives to realize that we have also consequences. We need to be careful for the things we do as well. Give us that full awareness, Lord, of your Holy Spirit in our lives so we can avoid making those kind of choices in our life that do not honor you. And help us to be that person that others can lean on, that has good moral character, Lord, that we can influence people, encourage people to do that right thing as well. Thank you so much for all you've done in your son's name. All right, well, thank you guys for being here. We need to wrap it up. We're done for the day. But in the next hour, we are going to have a message by our who is that guy's name now? The Arabic.
Oh yeah.
Forgot his name now. Oh, it's just terrible. It's when you get old, your brain starts to go. But our Arabic speaking church's pastor is going to be in the next hour. So please stand by for those of you online and be ready for that. And that's all I got. So God bless you guys. Thank you very much. And I'm going to shut down the live stream.